When I have to describe my work in 2 words, I always say my work is about a fictional autobiography. It's a very important term, and I came up with it maybe 15 years ago when I graduated, and I was sitting in my studio thinking about what to make, like every other artist. And then I thought, I'm constantly here, I feel good in my studio, I want to be in my studio, I'm a studio artist. But I'm here in this safe space between those 4 white walls. There's not much happening. I cannot tell you, I cannot make drawings about what is really happening, because then in 1 or 2 drawings that would be the end of the story, just me sitting there in the studio. So I came up with this idea of creating a fictional autobiography. In a way, I was about to tell a story about a life I've never lived, about memories, fake memories, about what could have happened if I decided to go outside the studio and had a more adventurous life maybe. But it all started also with the practice of drawing, because I was standing in front of and still am standing in front of the white piece of paper like for hours and hours. And it gives me a lot of time to start a daydream in a way. For me, it's a very strong feeling, and it's a very strong human ability we have to fantasize and to imagine things that could have never happened, or that didn't happen. So, for example, in my work, I meet these different kind of artists who are long gone, like Willem de Kooning or Pierre Bonnard, and I have these fictional conversations with them. So it's not only about what could have happened, but also what would never be possible, and it can happen in your imagination. I think in my work there is like 2 ways of dealing with a fictional autobiography. Like you have the charcoal works, which I started to do in the very beginning. And there I am the main character in these drawings. You see me, myself, but as a character. The character is also called Rinus Van de Velde, but you see me in different kind of environments. And these environments, most of the time I create them in my studio. So I will build a whole decor, like let's say I fantasize about discovering a new kind of plant or a new flower in the jungle. I would build a whole cardboard jungle, and then I would have a photograph of me taken inside this cardboard jungle, and this photograph serves as a sketch for the actual drawing. That's one thing, the charcoal drawings, and then the other kind of drawings are the oil pastel drawings and the color drawings, and they're much more citations, and it's much more like references to other artists' drawings, or let's say, for example, I could take a Pierre Bonnard painting and rework it a bit, and in that sense kind of pretend that I'm kind of a Bonnard figure or kind of a plein air figure. So in these works I really pretend to be another artist, and I test out different artist strategies. So on the one hand you have these more documentary kind of drawings which are in black and white, and for me it makes sense that they're in black and white because somehow it creates this kind of memory or this documentary kind of feeling, and they tell the story about me, and you see myself leading this fictional life. And then the works in color, most of the time are a little bit different, are actual works from the alter egos. The texts in the drawings are very personal, and they don't have like a academic quality, or like for example in the series that I make, I'm good friends with Willem de Kooning, but I try to pretend that I'm really his good friend, so it doesn't make sense to talk in an academic way about his work. No, I pretend that I'm his friend, that we live together and that we watch television together every night after work. The lines are super personal. That's because I pretend to be friends with him. I think for me it gives me a lot of pleasure to think about these fictional conversations, much more than I feel pleasure having them in reality. Because in these fictional conversations you can go so much further. Of course I can ask Pierre Bonnard for a cigarette, but I can also have a huge fight with David Hockney, for example. And in reality, when I would meet David Hockney, probably we would talk for 1 or 2 minutes, have a cigarette together, and then leave. But it's so interesting, I think, that we as humans can fantasize about, okay, what would happen if we would have a fight, or what would it be about, or what would I really want to say if I had the courage to say this or that. We want to believe in this kind of narrative world, or we want to make up stories, and that's also what makes us human, I think, and that's what brings us through narratives. We also generate meaning, and we generate like a structure in a totally fragmented world we're living in. I don't see the show as one big narrative, or I think it's all different narratives somehow coming together. That's the way I wanted to treat my work since a couple of years, not to have like a very rigid structure where there is a story that you can follow from A to Z, but it's also like memories, and in the end, when I will not be here anymore, it will make like one big story, but a story of a life that is never lived. And also, if I would tell you the story now of my life, it would be very fragmented, and it would be bits and pieces and memories, and sometimes it's important memories, but sometimes it's also very small anecdotes or something. In the beginning of the exhibition, there is a mask of myself that everybody can wear, and I'm becoming me. It's also a doubling of my persona, or creating an alter ego, but it's also about getting rid of the own persona. Like you become a sculpture if you put on the mask, and it's not about me being present. It's about me leaving. I'm not present there, and that's what I like as an introduction in the show. Like, I'm not there. It's this mask of me that is here. It's not. This show is not about me myself. It's about me being absent in a way, and maybe that's why it comes or it creeps in the work, or that I as a figure slowly am also disappearing out of the work. These works and these oil pastels, it's a medium that's much better suited for creating landscapes and not so for the human figure, I think. When I draw with these oil pastels, immediately I think of the Impressionist and the Neo-Impressionist and these early 20th century kind of works, or late 19th century kind of work. And then there is also the ceramics, which is a completely different part of the work. And these also tell stories, but in a completely different way. So I started making these ashtrays, and I kind of liked the different kind of aesthetic or visual language they had. Like back then I also became a father of twins. It was like 6 years ago, and I was watching television with them and watching these programs like Pingu. And I like this visual aesthetics and this visual language, and I wanted to include it as well in my work. And then I thought, yeah, making these ceramics ashtrays is a perfect extra thing to do, and I can incorporate these kind of visual languages into my work. And they're also purely imaginative. It's just a different way of telling a story, I think. And I like the visual language, and I also like that it becomes that it has a function in a way too, and that you can use it as an ashtray in the studio. And what we do also is like I take pictures from the ashtrays, and then I print them out really on a big size photographic print. And then they also kind of become film stills from a movie that was never there, or looks like a film still from an animated movie. And then they also are part of the fictional autobiography. So it's working in many different aspects, and everything is connected to each other in a way. In the beginning I chose for drawing as a medium for very specific reasons. because it's a medium that's very close to narration, I think, much more than painting, but it's also a very democratic medium. And it's also a medium that had always a marginal space in art history. And one very obvious strategy to do it is just to enlarge it and to make it more autonomous. So that's why I made a lot of very big works, but also because it tells you a story about a life I've never lived that you could really enter, and that like human figures in my drawings, that they were life-size, and that you're immersed into this pictorial environment in a way, and that you cannot like in one glimpse of an eye see the drawing, but that you have to scan it. Then I started making like these very small color pencil drawings, because I think it also says something about the specificity of the medium of drawing, the private character of it, and making it at a drawing table in a very private space. Or I also wanted to be able to make drawings everywhere I go, so whenever I'm traveling, that I could produce work also in my hotel room. So then I started making much more smaller drawings, and then these drawings are kind of mid-size, so it's not that I'm only making these big drawings anymore. Before it used to be only big drawings, but now I changed strategies a bit.